Hey guys, Yane here, and welcome to episode 3 of my Unreal Engine 4 Blueprint tutorial series. In this episode, we'll be making a vehicle that can hover above the ground. Let's get started. In Blueprints, the folder Blueprints, I'm going to be making a new Blueprint class, and this is going to be a pawn. This is going to be our car that we are able to control by pressing the keys. So let's call this hover car, and let's open it up. As you can see, there's only a default scene root in here. Let's add a new component. Let's add a cube. Let's call this mesh. Let's call this car mesh. It's a bit more descriptive. And let's go to materials. Let's add a different material. Let's just, I don't know. Let's add concrete. Give it a little bit of time. Come on. There we go. It takes a while. Needs to compile some shaders. That's fine. Let's keep going. Let's add a scene, root scene. And let's call this root. Let's add the car mesh to the root. Let's make it so the root is the root of the car mesh, And let's adjust the car mesh a little bit. Make the scale like 0.8, and this is 0.2. That's a bit low, maybe. Let's do 0.4. So it's more like a car shape now. I know it's just a cube, but let's go with it. Okay. Now that we've done that, we need to add a camera. So let's add a camera. Let's just keep it camera as name. And we're going to add a spring arm as well. And the spring arm, that's fine. Let's keep it like that. Let's add the spring arm to the car mesh. And let's add the camera to the spring arm. Now this is important. We want the spring arm to go with the car mesh, and we want the camera to be handled by the spring arm. So let's adjust the spring arm and the camera a little bit. The camera is in the wrong location, so let's change this to 0. And the spring arm, we don't want to know about the pitch and the roll, we just want the yaw, I mean. Arm length, let's make it a little bit bigger, 500. Let's up the Z on the location a little bit. A little bit more, like that. So you can see on top of the car a bit. And let's adjust the camera a little bit as well. Wait, we need to do that in the target offset here, actually. Let's go 50. 100. That's maybe a little bit too much, but should be fine. Let's keep it 50. Okay. Cool. Now that we have our car, we need to add our hover components to it. So let's go back into the map and let's go into the blueprints folder and let's add a new blueprint class. This is going to be a scene component, and this is going to be the hover component. Now this hover component is going to be 4 points on the cube, which point down and check the floor beneath the car to see if it's hitting anything. So these hover components are going to be added to the hover car. But first we need to change the hover components a little bit. Let's get rid of these. We need the event tick. We can already compile this, and we can already add it to the hover car if we want that. So if we got the car mesh here, and we want to add those hover components, so let's add components, hover component. There we go. This is going to be hover component 1. Let's go down underneath the car, and let's change the snap to 5. And let's go down in the blue until it's just visible. This way it's just underneath the floor of the car. It's good. And let's set it in the corner. Now we need 4 of these. Oop. So let's duplicate. Set this to 2. And let's drag it to the other side. Now duplicate again. Call it 3. And move it down. And let's duplicate this as well. Change it to 4. And move it to the left. Okay. Now we got 4 hover components underneath the car. But we need to select them all and move them into the car mesh, because the car mesh is the thing that's going to be moving. So we want to be making it a child of the car mesh. Okay. Now that we've done that, it should be fine. So let's compile that. And let's go into the hover component. Let's get started on this. Now, first of all, I'm going to be needing a custom event. So let's type custom event. And let's call this init component. I'm going to be needing to, we want to be initializing the component. So this is the function that we're going to use for it, or the event, essentially. And we're going to be needing a input, which is going to be called mesh component. Mesh component. And it's going to be a, I think it's a static mesh. Static mesh component. There we go. Now let's go to, we need to cast this to a primitive component. Cast to, let's get rid of the context sensitive and then cast to primitive component. There we go. Okay. Now we're gonna make this a variable. So promote a variable. And let's call this primitive component. You know what? Let's call this parent component. So we know that it's the parent. Okay. Now on the parent component, I'm going to be setting simulate physics, because we want this object, this car, to simulate the physics. So let's be sure to set this checkbox. Okay. Compile that. Let's go into the event tick. Now this is going to be the meat of the hover component. So let's get started on that. First of all, we're going to be needing a line trace. Line trace by channel. That's fine. Let's set it to the visibility and let's set the debug for 1 frame so we can see it to make sure it works. Let's get the world location. Get world location. And that's going to be our start. Now we're going to need a up vector. Oh, that's the wrong one. Get up vector on this component. And we're going to be going down. So we need to get the length of the trace needs to be minus. So it needs to go down. For that, we're going to be needing a new variable. So let's add a variable first. And let's make that trace length. And set that to a float. That's cool. Let's cancel the save. Okay. Let's drag that in here. Get. Now we need to multiply the up vector. And we need to multiply that by a float. Now the trace length is positive at the moment. So let's change that by multiplying it by -1. Oh, that's the wrong one. Needs to be a float. Okay, -1. And let's put that in here. And now we need to just add these two together. Vector by vector. Just add that to the multiply over there. Let's move it a little bit. Okay. And that's going to be the end. So we're just going to be line tracing from the world location down until we hit the ground. That's going to be it. Okay. Now that we've done that, and let's check if we have a result. So let's make a branch. We're going to be making sure that if we hit the ground, then we start doing stuff. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. Let's break our hit results. We're going to be needing a lot of this stuff. Okay. Now the location, I'm going to be doing that minus a vector. And that's going to be the world location. Okay. This way we'll be able to get the length. So we need the length of the vector. There we go. And when we have the length, we're going to be dividing it by a float. And that's going to be the trace length. This way we'll have a number that's going to be from 0 to 1. So 0 is going to be if it's all the way compressed. So if we're on the ground. And 1 is going to be if we're hovering all the way up max trace length. Okay, this is going to be added to a lerp. So let's add a lerp. Let's add this to the alpha. And we're going to be needing another variable. It's going to be our hover force. And this one is going to be the force required for us to get off the ground. So let's add that to A. Now that we've done that, let's multiply the lerp by the impact normal. So multiply by the float. Let's add that to the lerp. And this is going to be our force. So how are we going to apply the force? That's going to be pretty easy. We're going to go to true and then go add force, add location with the parent component. So the target is going to be the parent component. Okay, the force, going to go into force. It's pretty easy. And the location is going to be the world location of the component. Okay. Now this should work already. Well, not entirely. We still need to do some stuff. Let's compile that. Okay, let's go into the hover car. We're going to be needing to initialize the hover components because we need to make sure that all the hover components know about the parent mesh. Let's go into the event begin play. And let's type init components. There we go. Init component hover component 1. That's good. And the mesh component is going to be the car mesh. So let's add that. Okay. Now we're going to be needing a couple more of these. So let's do init component again for component 2. And this is going to have the same mesh. So add a little bit over there, should be fine. Another init component for the third one. Of course, this could have been done with an array, but let's just keep it simple for now. There we go. It's the last one. And let's add that to the car mesh. There we go. So it should initialize now. Let's compile this. And let's go into the viewport. Let's go into the hover components. And we're gonna select them all. And we're gonna set the trace length to about 40. That's gonna be 40 units above the ground. And the hover force is gonna be, let's go 30,000. I don't know. We have to test. So let's compile that. Let's add this to the scene. So let's go into the hover car here. And let's add it to the scene. Let's make it go up a little bit. Now we're not going to start with this one selected. I'm setting the auto possess player to player 0. This way, when we start the game, we'll be able to possess the car at the start instead of the third person player. So when we press play, there we go. And technically it's hovering, but as you can see, it's not amazing. This is because of the dampening. The dampening is set to 0, so every time it goes up, it comes down with the same speed and it keeps going the same way. So we need to set the linear dampening and the angular dampening to a little bit higher. So let's do that now. Let's go into the hover car. Let's go into the event graph. Nope. Let's go to the hover component, I mean. And let's add the linear dampening. So set linear dampening. Set linear damping, I mean. On the parent component. That's cool. And let's set the linear damping to about 3. 3 should be a good number. Okay, now we're gonna set the angular dampening as well. Angular damping. Why do I keep calling it dampening? It's fine. Set angular damping. And let's set that to about 5. We want really little angular movement on the car. So that's a way to do that. Let's compile this and let's try it again. There we go. Works pretty well. Okay, now we want to be making this a car, so we're gonna need some forward momentum to make it an actual drivable car. So let's get out of here and let's go into the hover car. Now we don't need event actor begin overlap. We don't need the tick either. We're going to be needing the move forward event. That's this one. Input axis move forward. Now we already have this because the third person project, example project, already has these enabled. It's going to be in edit and then in project settings and input. And over here you see the axis mapping. There's the move forward and the move right. So we're going to be using these two. Okay. Now to add the force to the move forward is pretty easy. So let's do that now. Add force. And I'm going to be adding the force to the car mesh. Let's keep it simple for now. If you want to make it a little bit better, you would add the force to a specific point on the car. So you can make it bounce up and down a little bit when it goes forward or when it brakes. You can have some neat effects with that. But let's keep it simple. Let's get the forward vector. There's the forward. Oh, that's the wrong one again. There we go. Get forward vector car mesh. And let's add, or let's multiply that by a float. And this is going to be our forward force. So let's make a fairly big number. So let's do 500,000. We need to multiply that. Multiply this by the axis value. The axis value is going to be, if we're going forward, it's going to be +1. If we're going backward, it's -1. And if we're not holding the button, it's going to be 0. So this way, you'll be able to go backwards and forwards right away. So let's add that to the force. And this should work already. So let's go into the game. And when we press W, or D, S, I mean, sorry. we're going forwards and backwards. Cool. Nice, that's working. Now what's not working is some turning. So let's add some turning to this car as well. We're going to be doing that with a torque. So let's use the move right axis event. There we go. And let's add a torque. Now the way to add this torque, first we're gonna be needing to multiply the axis value by, well, a lot. So float times float. And we're gonna be doing like 2 million. Yeah, they're gonna be needing a lot of torque to make this move. Or make this turn properly. Okay. Now we're gonna be making a vector. Let's add the torque first. Add torque. Do that to the car mesh. That's fine. And we're gonna be needing a vector for this. Make vector. And we're gonna be adding the torque to the z-axis. So let's do that. Let's just add this one to the z. Okay. Now there's going to be one problem, so you'll see in a moment here. As you can see, we can turn now without moving, but that's fine. Yeah, it works fine. But if we're going backwards, I'm pressing backwards and D at the same time. It's going the wrong way. It should be going the other way around. So let's fix that. Let's go into hover car. I'm going to be needing a lot of room for this one. So let's do this. Okay. So first, we want to be checking if we're going forwards or backwards. Now there's a couple things you can do that with. You can do that with the axis value if you want. Or you could do it by checking the velocity. The physics linear velocity. So let's do that. Get physics linear velocity on the car mesh. And let's do a dot product with the forward vector. Get the forward vector on the car mesh. And let's do a dot product. So we get a float out of that. And then we're going to check if the float is bigger than 0. I'm going to use a select float. Going to be using 1 for A, and B is going to be -1. This way we can check for if it's going forward. This, if we're going forward, by checking the value that comes out of here, this is a float. If it's bigger than 0, pick 1. If it's 0 or lower, pick B, which is -1. And when we multiply this, let's move this up a little bit. If we multiply this value by the axis value with the added force, let's do it like this. And then put it into the z. This way, if it's -1, we'll be making it go the other way. So that should be it to make this turn properly now. So let's go into the map. And forwards and backwards is still fine. If we go forwards and to the right, it's fine. If we go backwards. Now if we go backwards and D, yep, we go the right way, which is counterclockwise. Cool. Now the fun part of this is you could use this for a normal vehicle setup as well, because these are essentially suspensions you have now on the corners. As you can see, it moves properly with the stairs. Yeah, the stairs are a little bit too high for us. What we could do is adjust the trace length a little bit. So when we go into here, select all these components and go with the trace length to about 60. It's double what we had before. We're going to be needing to adjust the force as well a little bit. Let's add that. Let's make that 50. Okay. The higher we go, as you can see, moves nicely with the rest of the. So if you add some wheels until the end of the. Okay, that's not right. There's one issue you could actually fix easily. Let me just. Yeah, this works fine. But if you go into the hover car, and you go into the mesh, and then go into into the physics here, and click this show advanced, and then go to the center of mass offset. So if you set the center of mass a little bit lower, the car won't tip over so quick. So if we press play, and we go over, try to get up the stairs. As you can see, it tries to balance itself out a little bit better. Okay guys, that's about it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.